Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Taylor Johnson with Keller Williams Capital Properties, and I've been a realtor here in the DC area for 4 to 5 years. And one thing that I found out is really important is for buyers to do a home inspection. So today we're doing an interview with Roland Mitchell at Home Team. Good morning, Roland. Tell us a bit about yourself and Home Team.
Good morning, Taylor. Sure, I'll do that. My name is Roland Mitchell, and I am with Home Team Inspection Service of North DC. And what we are is we are actually franchise of home inspectors, usually kind of still mom and pop organizations though, maybe running one or two teams at various locations in the country. And their biggest claim to fame is they'll usually send out, depending on the size of your home, they'll send out a couple of people, teams, hence the Home Team name, to come out and get your inspection done as quickly as possible and as complete as possible. So their motto is fast, accurate, and trusted. So basically, we get out there, we get out there as quickly as possible, we get it done as quickly as possible. But most importantly, we get it done accurately, and then we get it back to you as quickly as we can. Myself, I was in the Air Force for 20 years. I was a navigator, so that pesky backseat driver, the one that gets that guy that always gets it in the movies while the pilot always gets all the fun. I'm the guy doing all the work in the back. And then after that, I retired, came out here to DC, and I opened up a franchise here. So I've been inspecting things of one sort of another for the last 20 or so years, either the aircraft and the section of the aircraft before we started. I was a safety officer in our squadron, so I used to do the more commercial type of safety inspections, more of an OSHA type of thing for the squadron for a couple of years. And then I was a strategic planner for a few years. And I came out here and I started doing home inspections, and I've been doing home inspections for about just about 2 years now. So, but that's kind of me in a nutshell.
All right, awesome. Well, I can certainly attest. You and I have done a fair number of inspections together. I can attest that you are very accurate and thorough, and certainly very willing to pop in at a moment's notice if your schedule admits. So I really appreciate that. Thanks very much.
Thanks. Appreciate you too.
All right. So what happens during a home inspection?
Okay, so what happens at home inspection? I guess first, the definition of a home inspection is a visual inspection of a property as it sits on that day for a fee. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to take our various instruments and things like that, and we're going to go over your home from top to bottom, a home or a condo or apartment or whatever they're buying. So we're going to look over the major systems of the home, and that's what the home inspection is designed to do, to make sure your major systems are operating and those big, huge, high ticket items are going to be taken care of. So what it's not supposed to do is go through and check off all the little tiny things that people tend to see, such as the cosmetic details like, hey, the molding's broken here, or hey, the paint doesn't match here, or hey, there's some cracks in the wall here, or the plaster's coming off here. So things like that we're not going to be concentrating on, but we are going to be concentrating on major systems. So foundations, we're going to be looking at exterior, your windows, your roofing, the attic, all your HVAC, any of your main appliances that are attached to the home. We're also going to look at that. And since it's a visual inspection, we can't see behind anything. So if there's any issues inside the wall, we're not going to be able to check that out. But what we do have are indicators that we look for, such as staining, certain types of cracks that are going to concern us, V-shaped cracks, any cracks that are offset indicating movement. We're going to see if we can track down and see what that issue is. When we test your plugs, if any plugs don't work, when we open the dead front on the electrical panel, we'll see if there's any miswiring there, if there's two wires going to one breaker that isn't designed for that, double taps, things like that. So when we see the indicators, then we use our tools, such as a moisture meter. So if I see a stain, feel it to see if it's dry or not, put my moisture meter on it just to make sure. And then based on that content, that we'll try to ascertain is, hey, this might be the problem. And then we'll go from there. So since we're generalists and we're not specific to anything, we're not experts in anything. Most of us aren't. Like some people were prior structural engineers or were prior plumbers or things like that, or were prior city code inspectors. So we're not code inspectors. So we have our national code that we go by as a guideline, but we can't say whether anything's code or not. And then code only applies to when the house or that section of the house was actually built or renovated last. So we go.
So you
and
might
what,
say it's not to current standards, but it probably was at the time it was built, kind of a thing.
yeah. So it's more sort of thing. So sometimes we'll say the word code, but we'll specify, hey, I'm not a code inspector, but it's not
Right.
to current standards, not to current codes. But around here we got a house built in 1908, and last renovated in the 50s. It's like, well, in the 50s, these type of plugs weren't required. So when the house was built, it is to that standard, to that code. But modern things and luxuries and safety items, it might not have. So since we're not specific or specialists, then we will recommend, if we see something, then we'll write it. We take pictures of it. We'll take pictures of it. We'll write it up and say that, hey, we recommend either further investigation, or we recommend this be repaired if it's something minor. And whenever we recommend repairs, we recommend repairs with certified technicians or contractors. Of course, realizing that today in YouTube and how handy people are, a lot of things can be done with the homeowner, but we're going to always recommend that they go and see a professional and get a second look, and then get that repaired by a professional.
Cool. So now, I know, so as a buyer's agent, one thing that we do is we can use your report to negotiate with the seller for those repairs, or a credit if the seller would prefer to do that, towards the buyer at settlement, to cover the cost of repairs if we see something that really big that needs to be done. I don't recommend, as a buyer's agent, when the home inspection comes up with a list of 30 things, that we go to the seller with all 30 things, because they're going to turn us down. We pick out the 4 or 5 really major ones and deal with the rest of it ourselves. So there are 2 different types of reports, right? You could do what you like to call a walk and talk, or you could do a full report. What are the differences there, and maybe advantages of one over the other?
Okay, so I guess there's really only one report that we do, but there's 2 or different types of I guess inspection.
Well, the inspection's the same, right?
Yeah. Well, so yes, so the inspection is the same, just one you get a report and one you don't. So one you just get the verbal readout at the end, or the homeowner, we recommend, if they can follow us around, then if they follow us around while we find things, or they can stay in a central location or be measuring for things that, and if we find something, we'll call them over so they can see what we're talking about, or we'll do a final walkthrough. For the walk and talk, it's usually a bit quicker, because we're not having to document every single thing.
Right.
Once again, we're only looking at the major components of the home as we go through. So it's quicker, doesn't take as long. You don't have to wait for the report to come back. And that's usually what we do in places like DC, New York, Phoenix, places where you have a lot of volume and things moving very quickly. So, maybe don't have a time to put in a complete offer and then, wait, or to say, hey, well, I don't want to do that. I got a guy waiting for cash right behind you. So it's okay, cool, come out, we'll take a tour, we'll bring a home inspector with us, and we'll go through and do a walk and talk, and then we can decide on how much we want to offer. So the walk and talk is designed more of a pre-offer thing. Say, okay, here's how we think the house sets, and here's where we think our offer should be based on how much work we think we're going to have to get done afterwards. Whereas the full inspection is usually done as part of the actual buying process. So once the bid is accepted, they'll go through, and then we'll go through. It's the same inspection. It takes a little bit longer just because we're taking pictures of more things. We're documenting everything. We're making sure we can rebuild in an actual visual report out format, PDF, that, hey, here's the way the house looked. Here's what we found. Here's what we recommend. And that way, when you go down to negotiates about, hey, well, we like this fix or like that fix, then you have something that's hard, that's there to say, hey, look, here's what he found, here's the pictures, here's the recommendations, here's what he says, and they can either dispute it or use that to help them fix whatever they need fixed, and then it's kind of a more finalized and official part of that buying process, so that everyone's on the same page. Hey, here's what it is document certified by your home inspector. Here's what he saw, and this is why we want this, as opposed to just using it to figure out where you want to put your offer.
Right. So you've kind of alluded to something there that I was gonna cover, that in this particular market, and not just DC as a geographical area, but right now we have so few homes for sale nationwide. It seems to be everywhere. People are having to kind of compete against other buyers and remove their own protections from the buying process in order to be able to get the deal. It's certainly not something that I like to advise my clients to do, but if they want to win the house, that's what they have to do. But one of those things that we can do to still protect ourselves is the inspection before the offer with the walk and talk. So they at least know what they're buying when they wave away their right to inspection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always good to know what you're getting into.
Right. Okay, so and you might also in your inspection find things that you would recommend having a specialist come to look at, like a structural crack or potential mold or something like that, right?
Yes. So like I said, we're generalists and we're not experts or certified for specific type of inspections other than the general home inspection. So yeah, if I see a large crack, say in the brick or in the concrete work in a basement wall, I'll say, hey, you need to have a foundation specialist come in here and evaluate this. I'll put in, hey, there's a large crack that is displaced and showing movement in the basement. We recommend evaluation by a professional, either a certified contractor or, like I said, a foundation individual, and then proceed with the repairs as required. Some things we don't like windows, we'll say remove or replace, or
Right.
have an evaluation come out with that. But that's like stuff that can be handled by a contractor. If it's a roof, we're gonna recommend a roofer or a contractor come out and get a second opinion. And some things are obvious. Hey, you got water dripping in your roof, and this is gross.
It's a hell of a clue, right?
And there's other things coming in here. Yeah. And that's what, yeah, you just need this part replaced. But then we still recommend a roofer come in and evaluate the rest of the roof, because sometimes there's damage that we just can't see without the more invasive tools, or actually getting up there sometimes and hacking on things and pressing on things and things like that sometimes we can't do. But yeah, we'll go and like electrical work. Hey, you have electrician come here and evaluate these plugs in this room, whatever.
Right.
Rewire them or install them, stuff like that. Anything that's dangerous or anything that's going to be a part of a major part of the house. HVAC is a big thing that we usually have people come out and look at.
Yeah. Now, since you bring up the electric, you remind me, kind of a side and maybe personal note. I have a property in Baltimore that had an old electric panel, and I forget the brand name, but there was some kind of brand name that shows up frequently in Baltimore, and it's really deemed kind of a dangerous brand. But I don't see those very often in DC. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've never seen one of the two types. One is a Zenco, and I forget what the other one is.
Like Pacific or something?
Yeah, Pacific, but it's not just Pacific, it's Pacific something.
Yeah, okay.
But so one was just an unsafe panel. And the Pacific, I think, had a problem with the breakers, that they just didn't fit in correctly, and
right,
they get all weird, stuff like that.
I think that's right.
So I haven't seen any of those yet, but a lot of stuff in DC has been refurbished at one time or another. And it's kind of different areas of the country you see it, but here, Baltimore is just right down the street from DC, and it just depends on the contractors and how good their salespeople were at the time. So you'll get into a place and they'll say, hey, we got this thing, it's brand new, it's hot off the market, blah blah. These things are easy, snap in, snap out. It's way easier than what you guys were using before. You have a good salesman in that area, then everyone buys them, and, electrical companies buy up all the stocks and stuff like that, and then they just use them, and then it's just weird how it goes into one area, but one area it might not be, or one area just sparse onesies, twosies. And then in some places, like if they say, hey, here's if you have these, and then once you have a class action sort of thing, they'll say, hey, if you have these, the city recommends you get an inspection, you get these moved out. Whereas other cities just like, okay, well, we'll handle on a case by case basis if something goes wrong and things like that. So a lot of that also depends on your local regulation and how they want to remedy that situation if they think it's an actual situation to be handled.
Interesting. So that's just really amazing. I mean, it's only a half an hour away, and yet it seems as though we're very different markets in that sense.
Yeah.
They got it or still have it, and we don't, right? Well, I guess that's good for home buyers in this area.
Yes.
But are there other things that do show up frequently here that in this region that buyers need to be aware of? Like I've heard of Chinese drywall too, and there's, I don't know, maybe some kind of weird insulation, but that's behind the walls. You don't see that. But
so yeah. So a lot of stuff behind the walls you're not going to see. If the basement is still open, that's where we'll get to see a lot of things. Like we'll see the type of wiring they have running around. We'll able to see some of the plumbing and stuff like that, like what the floor is made out of, the joists and the things like that. As far as Chinese drywall and stuff like that, the deal with Chinese drywall is when it would off gas and it would corrode everything else in the house. So your pipes, yeah. So it's like your copper pipes.
That's not good.
Your wiring and stuff would start to get all weird and corroded because of the off gassing and the weird process that they were using at the time. So the drywall in itself was, I don't think it's that much more toxic than anything else off gassing. It's just that it would eat up all the components of the rest of the house. And then when you pull stuff out, you get the funny watercolor, something smell weird, and they pull that stuff off, and then just the pipes and stuff would just be all nasty and stuff behind it. So it was something that you wouldn't know about until it was super obvious, because no one knows where the house was made with a Chinese drywall unless who installed it, when they install it, and they can say, hey, here's our parts list we used, and yeah, we use this lot which came from whatever. But at one point, I guess most people were using it, but a lot of that stuff was taken out and replaced. The only big thing I see a lot here is what we call CSST, corrugated stainless steel tubing. So it looks like a big yellow bendy tube. It's about maybe 2 inches or so in diameter. It's a big,
it's usually used on gas lines, right?
Yeah, it's used on gas lines, and it's usually big and yellow. And you can see it's a stainless steel tubing, but it's wrapped in this yellow rubberized outer coating. So what that is it's a gas pipe. It's not to be confused with the appliance connector. The appliance connectors look similar, but they're smaller. So that goes to a appliance, and it's kind of bendy, but it looks like that, but it's bigger, and it usually comes off your main gas line.
Okay.
And when that goes through the rest of the house, we have to call the CSST out when we find it, because in some situations, if there's a discharge inside the house, or the house is energized through a lightning strike or something like that, they found that it will break the thinner walls, because what the corrugation is, you have a thick wall, then a thin wall of metal, and that allows you to bend it. And this came up in the Japanese and the Asian market first, because they have a lot of seismic activity. So when you have all these rigid pipes and stuff, and things start moving, they crack, they break, and you got gas leaks, and it's like, okay, that's bad. So they had this rigid type of tubing that they could use. Those pretty tough. I mean, as far as mechanically tough. So as things move around, it can move and not break. So people started using it here. The problem is, in the United States, we have this unique weather pattern area where we have a lot of lightning strikes. And if they're finding in the 70s, I think 70s, 80s, when they would be struck with lightning, because they have that thin tube, that has a less resistance to flow than the thick tube did, or less mechanical resistance, I should say. And then sometimes the lightning would find a place to ground out to that thin tube and create a hole. So once you have a hole in a gas line and electricity and a big spark, that's usually a bad thing. So
bad combo.
So there were a few fires that happened, but like with other systems of the house, like your plumbing and your other gas line, they have what they call bonding. So basically, you take a big conductive wire and you have it one fitting to another fitting, so it jumps over whatever is providing most of that resistance is going to be prone to failure. So the path of least resistance is now around that. So usually when they install that, they can, as they say, bond it out so that it's not really an issue. But we don't know if it's specifically bonded or not. It'd have to be either the guy who inspected it or installed it. So now that also depends on the local regulations and whether you can use it or not. So if you use it or not and you pass inspection, I guess you kind of have to trust that it was installed correctly or bonded correctly, so that it mitigates that warning. But we're going to tell you if we see it in the house, we'll take pictures of it and do a short explanation of why we call it out. Just put everyone at ease. I mean, they have codes for a reason, and especially if you have a newer home with CSST in there, if it passed the inspection, I'm going to have to trust the inspector and trust that it is up to code and it has all the mitigation installed.
Cool. Wow. Yeah, that'd certainly be an important thing to look at. So if you were giving advice to folks about choosing an inspector, I often tell people you get what you pay for in this industry. And it's definitely worth paying a little more money to get a good inspector. But how do people know that they're getting a good inspector? What questions should they be asking, or what should they be looking for?
So if they're going to look on their own, I guess when I was buying houses, it was kind of a hobby of mine. So I kind of knew what I was wanting to look for when I was looking at houses in the first place, kind of. Then my background I just was able to kind of tell a little bit more stuff, and so I wanted someone who kind of knew what I knew. But going through a process, I was gone all the time, so I kind of just trusted my realtor. Because if you can't trust your realtor while you're looking for a house, I mean,
Right.
then maybe you should either have another one or try a different route. But when you're looking for one on your own, it kind of follow the process with kind of any sort of contractor or subcontractor that you would be building something with or doing something. So if you were going to look at getting your car looked at, right, you might, if you don't have a trusted person that and you're just looking through the phone book, you're probably going to get about 3 or so recommendations. So you go, I would say Google search, see who pops up, kind of look at their websites, see what it looks like, if they have any examples of the reports, if they have examples of their certifications, where they're certified to work, what are the qualifications in your area. So DC does not require any licensing. You just have to have a business license and I believe a certain amount of insurance. That's it, as long as you have a business license. For Maryland and for Virginia, you actually have to have a license, and the requirements are different in Maryland than they are in Virginia. You can go to your state's website as you're researching a guy, and they will have kind of their section of licensing, and depends on where that is. It's just different every state, but you can go in there and look up the name of the company and see whether they have a license, see if it's active, see if they have any active complaints against them. So you kind of go and do through that. And then honestly, when you go to websites, you kind of see, hey, here's what they're running with, here's their explanation. Most of them should look pretty much the same as far as what they do. Like you said, the biggest thing is going to be the price. And you can ask, hey, what do you guys cover on your inspections? Do you guys use this equipment? Do you use that equipment? Do you climb on the roof? Do you use a drone? Do you use a camera? What's my report going to look like? You can get a sample report from most people. Most websites will have hey, here's a sample report, and then you can always call the person as well. A lot of people don't do direct calling these days. It's more of whatever your social media is or whatever your website says, but you can also talk to the person. A lot of people like to talk to persons to see, hey, I'm concerned about this, would you be able to tell this, and what's your report cover? And then kind of like at the beginning when I was telling, hey, here's what a home inspection is, and here's what we cover. Everyone will give that as we call driveway speech or kitchen speech, and kind of go over what they cover. And then at the end of the day, a lot of times a lot of us are similar. So at the end of the day, like you said, it's going to be pricing. But like you said, you get what you pay for, and depending on your investment, I get it. You know, in the Midwest or Oklahoma City, where I was stationed last, you know, if I'm buying a home for $70,000, an older, smaller home for $70,000, I might not want to pay $450 for inspection. I might be going to cash out or whatever. But if I'm investing $799,000 in a home, $400 or $500 for a condo inspection might not be a bad investment. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the home buyer's choice, who they feel comfortable with. But yeah, the biggest things is, are you certified? Are you licensed in the state and the city? What's your report look like? What are you guys going to look at? What should I expect when I get that report? Because some of those things, like the older inspectors, are still working on handwritten copies and paper stuff like that. I got a frantic call from somebody. It's like, yeah, this is a joint deal, and the other guy wanted to go with somebody, and he handed me this sheet of paper with some scribble on it. What do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't help you. I wasn't there. Hopefully you took some pictures when they were going through the house as well. So, but and the other things is like, I'm not saying more in your report is better, but at the minimum, it should be basically they'll take pictures and they'll know anything that went wrong with the house. By the standards, anything that's okay with the house is, you don't even have to document that, but some people do and some people don't.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, I think calling is a really good idea, because you're certainly very personable and easy to talk to. And one thing that I have always appreciated about every time we've had an inspection is you're able to explain to the customer in a way that they get it, and it doesn't matter how sophisticated they are in building or not. You're able to find the language to help them understand what's going on. And I don't see that in every inspector. Some are just like over people's heads. So I think they know their stuff, right? They're really sharp, but maybe they're not so good at communicating that to people. And you are. So I think that's a great idea, is to call people and have that conversation.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, a home team is kind of like I say, it's a franchise, but kind of like a mom and pop franchise. And when you go down to Ohio, then the president comes out and he meets you and talks to you and tells you his story and stuff like that. And part of that is, it's not like a Chick-fil-A thing, but it's when you go there, you're still, no matter what you've signed or what you've done, when you go there, you talk that you're still under you're still under that interview process. So they kind of pick and choose, people who can do that, with something that they're trying to build across the nation. Someone who can talk to people, who can explain things to people and things like that. And but yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And I definitely try to get down to speak to people so that they understand exactly what I'm talking about.
Great. Well, so Roland, thanks very much for your time today. I think it's been very valuable and people are going to appreciate this. What is the best way for folks to reach you?
The best way for folks to reach me is, I guess, the preferred method. So I have a website. So it's www.hometeam.com/NorthDC. And that takes you to my webpage. I have to warn people, my face is not on the webpage anywhere readily accessible. That's what the franchise likes to have them all the same place. They can contact me on my personal cell, 830-832-1910. My email is rmitchell, that's RMITCHELL @hometeam, all one word, .com. And also I have the business phone, 202-945. Shoot, can't remember my last four. 24/7, 2407. Sorry, 202-945-2407. So either I can get in touch with you there, or there's also a different number on the website. It's kind of a general number that just goes to our answering
Central dispatch that then sends out. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so also when you go to the website, a lot of times we'll say, hey, what's the area code, or not area code, the zip code that you're looking for. So if you enter the zip code where your office is and a zip code where the house is, you might get two different people if you go to the general website, just the hometeam.com, without any of the Northeast and stuff like that.
Right.
But either way, we'll get somebody out to you, and they'll contact you and try to see if they can help you out.
Okay, terrific. Well, thanks. And again, I am Taylor Johnson with Keller Williams Capital Properties. I'm part of the Garcia team. And the best way to reach me is my mobile phone is 202-763-2483, or my email is taylor@enggarcia, ENGGARCIA.com. And we'll look forward to hearing from folks. And thanks again for your time, Roland. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Taylor. Appreciate you having me.
Okay.
All right, have a good day.